Good afternoon, everybody. We are back with RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress live podcast. We have a senator and a representative today talking to you about some important legislation that we have coming down the pipe and how you can get involved. Today, we're talking about the Inspector General bill, and I am so excited to have Senator Jessica De Cruz and Representative Chippendale coming on and talking to you all about this bill today. So let me bring them on live. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having us.
I'm gonna, in case people don't know who you both are, Senator, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
So my name is Jessica De Cruz, and I represent the 23rd Senatorial District in Rhode Island, which includes all of Burrillville, all of Gloucester, and part of North Smithfield.
Awesome. And Representative Michael Chippendale, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yep, I am Representative Mike Chippendale. I represent the 40th House District, which is made up of the town of Gloucester, the majority of the town of Gloucester, and also half of Coventry.
And you both are in my neck of the woods because everybody knows I am out here in Burrillville. Yes, I'm a Burrillian, so I love it. These are my representatives down here. So let's get right into it because this bill is so important. Senator, tell us a little bit about what the Inspector General bill is.
Yeah, sure. The Inspector General bill does a few things, and it's why we put it in specifically. We want independent oversight of what's happening in the state. It's kind of like if you're asking the government to perform oversight on itself, especially in the state with supermajorities, that might be a little bit difficult to do. So what you want to do is you want to have independent oversight. So this individual would be looking to find fraud, waste, and instances of abuse. Also, I believe, and I know that many others do as well, it promotes efficiency and makes government more effective. And it also prevents or acts as a deterrence to misconduct. Just knowing that someone is watching makes everybody behave a little bit more, behaves better than I think than sometimes already happens. It produces accountability and transparency in government, and then I feel like most importantly improves public trust in the system of government.
I completely agree with you. When you even when you have competition, when there's two companies that are doing the same thing and you have competition, you're held more accountable for what you're doing than if somebody had just a contract where they get everything that they need. We have a lot of that here in Rhode Island. So I agree with you. I believe in this bill. Representative Chippendale, from the House side, what is it on the House side that you guys believe in?
Certainly I echo the same exact sentiments as Senator De Cruz, and we feel the same that if we're expected, if our state agencies are expected to perform at the highest efficiency and with the highest level of effectiveness, they're not necessarily going to get there on their own. It's like me when I was a young driver promising my mother I wouldn't speed, and I didn't want to speed, but sometimes I would get up there in the speed. But if I knew there was a policeman on the road, I would not have sped.
Right.
That's the same thing, the same dynamic that you have where an Inspector General exists. People will be certain to follow the rules, to make sure everything they do is above board and the most productive and efficient use of taxpayer money. That's not to say that there are agencies or individuals who are intentionally breaking the law. It can just be apathy. You get used to doing things a certain way, and it's not the proper way, but it might be quicker. That will get picked up in a regular audit by the Inspector General, and it will be corrected before it's allowed to grow any further. And frankly, we believe in the House caucus that, and I suspect the Senate does as well, that an office like this will work towards preventing things such as the Washington Bridge failure, where if we had issues brought to our attention An inspector general could have looked into that years ago and saw that maybe the inspection process had some flaws, or maybe the bidding process, whatever they ultimately learned. That could have been learned very easily and not at the expense of our state's economy. So we feel that this is an imperative bill for the state of Rhode Island. Our neighboring states do it. The federal government does it. In fact, the federal inspectors general, they save $21 for every dollar that's invested in their office.
Oh.
So there's a 21-to-1 return. Now, I'm not saying that Rhode Island's inspector general would have the same level of return, but I would like to think it's going to at least do half of that. So it's an investment in our own state. It's an investment in the people of our state, and it's a commitment to the people who pay taxes that we respect their work, their tax money that we've collected, and that we're going to show them that we respect it by using it wisely and using it in a way that will benefit everyone.
That sounds great. Senator, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, so I understand, but most of our viewership are about the disability community or the elder community, ones who are using mobility aids. Tell them how this bill would affect their communities, like affect them specifically, if you can.
Well, I think that all legislation that we put forth, we want it to benefit all Rhode Islanders. So regardless of, one's background, one's ethnicity, one's country of origin, one's abilities, we want legislation that's going to benefit all Rhode Islanders. And Inspector General will no doubt enhance Rhode Islanders in general, their lives, by making sure that we are, we're not engaged in corruption. We're not wasting taxpayer funds. As a state, I remind people there are a lot of initiatives that we'd love to put forth, but we are a state, and so we're not the federal government. We can't print money. Not that I support printing money, because that leads to inflation. But the point is that we have so many funds, and they're finite funds, and then we need to allocate them first to things that are needed and necessary. And then if we have excess, then we can allocate those funds to things that we want to implement. So I think with Inspector General, what happens there is they're going to root out waste, root out fraud, abuse in the way they use funds. And so that benefits all Rhode Islanders, regardless of,
would it
socioeconomic
oversee, would it oversee things like 504 plans for children going to school, or SSDI, sometimes, not having a living wage, or like, will it pick up certain things like that, or elder abuse or disability abuse, or, like the ABLE fund? Will it be watching all of those kind of things that this community looks for?
It would, it's scope government. When you're looking at oversight, of course, SSI is going to fall under that. Anything that's government, that's produced by government, it would be oversight over government. So definitely, I didn't remember all of the agencies that you mentioned, but certainly yes. If it's a government agency, if it takes government funds, then yes.
One of the big things, Representative Chippendale, I know that this community has is like the contract with National Seating and Mobility, or the contract with MTM. That is a thorn in my own side, but we don't want to talk negative. But will those contracts be looked at by the Inspector General? Those directly affect this community.
Yes, they absolutely would. And I think that's a really good example, Tina, of how it would directly impact the disabled community. I know you're painfully aware of this. As you're aware, we're a colonial state, so our stuff is real old, including some of our buildings, our police departments, our government buildings, etc. And there is a lot of lack of compliance with our disability laws, even among governments. So they would oversee all of that. They would be able to perform analyses and see who's in compliance, who's not, and frankly, course correct those who are not, and assist those who are trying to but can't. As far as the MTM situation, yes, the House and the Senate do have oversight bodies, but we are part of the legislature. We fund these programs, these agencies. The executive runs the programs and the agencies. Having this independent office to oversee both of them will ensure that it's fair across the board. Nothing is tilting towards one, the Senate or the House or the governor or this one or that one. It's all right down the middle. The way that this bill is constructed this year, I think it's probably in the best shape we've seen it, because we've learned every year by talking to inspectors general, whether they're from the federal government. I've spoken to some who retired from the military. We're working on meetings with the Massachusetts inspector general. We're learning more about how to make an effective office, and this community, the disabled community, would absolutely benefit by this type of oversight. And to go back to Senator Del Cruz's point, when we're not wasting taxpayer money, there will be more money available to properly fund the things that we all rely on in government.
I completely agree with you, because, everybody knows that I go around to businesses and I help them, find the funds, find the tax breaks to become accessible. And I find them very open to it. They just didn't know how, and they didn't know how to do it. So I don't think people are doing it to be mean or to be rude. They just don't know how to go about the next step. So something like this would definitely be an asset to them, by having oversight and showing them and guiding them how to take the next step. Senator, tell me how the Senate is approving of this bill. Like, what's the vibe in the Senate about this bill?
Well, if I'm honest, I don't think that there's, there's some people who simply don't want the legislation, feel that it's unnecessary. I strongly disagree with that sentiment. Sorry about that. I mean, you get water. However, the legislation is bipartisan. So it's both Democrats and Republicans. And I believe, at least in the Senate side, it was initially introduced years ago by the majority party, which are Democrats. But it has been a bipartisan effort. And at least I've always tried to do everything in a bipartisan manner. And so there is support for it. But whether or not there's support from, say, members of leadership, I don't know. But I would certainly hope that anybody in government would be okay with oversight, right? If it's almost like Rep. Chippendale was talking about having that police officer on the side of the road, or you have good intentions. You get into government because you have good intentions, but we want to make sure that we're always on the straight and narrow, that we're doing right by the taxpayers. And this is just one way in which we can ensure that government is effective and that it is working for the people.
I agree with you. I think any representative or senator who doesn't want oversight, that's the ones that I'm feeling not so warm and fuzzy about, because why don't you want? Because I know I'm the type that, sometimes you get a little lead foot, but you see that police officer sitting on the side of the road and you see all the cars slow down really quick, you know what I mean, and get on the right path. So I really believe in this bill. Representative, what is the vibe in the House about this bill? Like, what are you hearing?
Yeah, so we too have bipartisan support. The bill was signed on to by a large percentage of the members, and I suspect if we had more time, we could have probably gathered twice as many signatures. So there is an element that supports it because it's a good government initiative. It's not something that's controversial, unless you're one of the individuals whose power would have to be given up to this office. And in politics, power is it's a currency, and it's something that's not easily given up. So, as Senator Del Cruz stated, it's ultimately the leadership's responsibility, and that happens to be where the power is. So it won't be they won't be happy to hand over the power, but I think what we have to do is continue to bring this bill back as many years as we have to, and continue to speak with people as much as they're willing to listen, and try to bring up to them what the benefits of this office would be. And get it to the point where there's so much pressure that even leadership is not able to stem off the tide of support for an initiative like this. And let me say this too, Tina, it won't cost Rhode Island a single dime to institute this office if we do it right, because we already have a very expensive Office of Auditor General. And frankly, this would be a duplication of roles in certain areas when it comes to fiscal audits. If we were to create two different offices, we could take the resources over there, and they have something like 35, I believe, CPAs in that office. And with that budget, just push it over under this statutory organization and slightly change the scope to be an investigatory body that also has the ability for criminal referrals, et cetera, et cetera. And it wouldn't cost us any more money to set it up that way, but it would save us so much more money if we embraced it.
There's a lot of things with the disability community that if you just redid the way you do it or write one piece of legislation would actually save the state a lot of money, but they're just not seeing it from that angle, from our lens. I completely agree with both of you. So, Senator, how long has this bill been going on, and what's the next steps? How can people get involved?
Yeah, so the bill was introduced before I was even a senator, and it continues to be introduced. And like as the rep had said, we're going to continue to introduce this piece of legislation. What we can do as Rhode Islanders is first you need to reach out to your state rep and your state senator and say, I am strongly in support of this legislation, and I hope you are too. And I'd like to know where you stand. Because if you just, when a constituent asks me a question, I respond. If they're stating, then I take into consideration, I keep all the emails so I know where people stand on the issue. But if you want to have a conversation with your state rep or your state senator, say, this is important to me. I'd like to hear, where you stand on the topic. And then when there are hearings, as many people, if they could come to the hearings or just email the committee and again, your state senator and state rep and say, I'm in support, because we go through that testimony in committee. I certainly do. I go through all the pieces of legislation, match them up with the legislation so that I can see, what are the points for, what are the points against. But this isn't one of those pieces of legislation where there are a lot of, points against, because there really aren't, points to make against it. It's for good government and about shining a light on government and those dark crevices.
Senator, I just
areas.
got a great question in the
Yeah.
chat from somebody who's watching us live, and I would like you to address that if you could.
Sure.
For those who may not be involved in government like me, who's up at the State House, a couple of times a week, tell everybody how they can find where this bill is or who their senator is or their representative is. Tell them how to get to that.
So that's a great question. You can go on the Secretary of State's website, and there's a link there to find my legislators. And when you type in your address into the Secretary of State's website, and that's probably, Rhode Island SOS.gov, something like that. And then it will tell you who the president is, who your congressman is, who your U.S. senator is, anybody in government within your district. And that's how you're going to get a hold of them. And as far as knowing, and this is from somebody who was just totally not political. I ran for office, had no idea. I couldn't even tell you where I could find a bill, where to read it. Online, the state legislature has a website. And, so if you just Google search Rhode Island legislature, and at the top, you can see, one that say legislation and bills. If you click on that, you can see all the bills in the House and the Senate. But what I like to do, because that can be very overwhelming, is I go to a section that is called committee calendars. And for that week, every committee calendar in the House and the Senate will list the legislation that is being heard that week. And so that I know that I'm not, researching a bill that's going to be heard in, June, that's being heard right now on April, 2nd. Then I know exactly, what legislation I'm looking for. And sometimes some senators and reps sometimes have mailing lists. So you want to find out if maybe your senator rep has like a legislative update kind of thing. I know some senators do and some reps do, some don't. But if yours happens to, or you find one that does, you can sign up for their legislative updates. I'm not saying that it's an all-inclusive list, because sometimes, you know, you're hearing hundreds of bills. Not every bill is going to make it into that legislative update, but
Right. I recommend for everybody to reach out to their local representative or their senators and have a cup of coffee with them. They're all very open to meeting with you to get, that's who they're there to serve. You know, if you want to get involved and you want to know what's out there, make a conversation. You know, even if you're talking to your staff, because I know how busy you guys are, even if you're talking to your staff, the staff will point you in the right direction. From somebody who is very technically not the greatest or can't find something on the website, I will just go to one of my representatives. I will go to somebody and say, hey, what's coming on the docket this week? What do I need to be and where do I need to go? And they're very good about telling you what's going on and what you might be interested. Representative Chippendale, do you have anything to add to that? I know you're very open to meeting with people and getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think communication is the key. People often feel hesitant to reach out to their elected officials, but that's why we're here. We love direct feedback from our constituents and from the people of Rhode Island, because that helps us know if we're on the right track or if we're pursuing something that's important to them, or the opposite if we're not. So nothing is more helpful than direct communication with constituents. So when someone calls or emails and asks for a phone call or a meeting, like you said, yeah, we're happy to do that, because they get to know us and we get to know them, and we have a better understanding of what's important to them and why. And honestly, without those types of interactions, we could just be sailing along thinking we're doing great, and we're really not, you know. And this is something that's, I think, is quite poignant here. A couple of years back, and Tina, as you know, I'm disabled as well, so I'm usually in tuned to the disability provisions in all of our legislation and our laws. But a couple of years back, a disabled constituent asked me to meet with her, and I did. And she pointed out to me something that completely sailed under the radar to me in one of our laws, which was the CCRI Promise Scholarship, which allows graduating high school seniors to attend our state's community college 2 years for no tuition. And in that law, disabled people were blatantly and openly discriminated against because of the way that the program was set up. And when this was brought to my attention by a constituent whose son was directly impacted by it, we were able to jump and address the shortcoming in the law and get it corrected. Had she not felt comfortable reaching out to me, and really she was bearing her soul because her son was so devastated by the rejection on the scholarship. If she hadn't done that, he'd still be feeling as if he were less than. But now he's in his second year of CCRI and he's doing great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think the people need to know that, for me, who doesn't politically affiliate and I don't get involved in a lot of that, you guys are very approachable. You're just like us. You are us. People need to get over the fact that you are, and you hold an office and you have been elected, and you know you're a little bit, but you are everyday people. You are just like us, and you like to be approached like everybody else, respectfully, in time wise. You know what I mean? As long as you're having an adult conversation, being respectful to, maybe you don't agree with everything, but you do have that conversation. You guys are very open, and that's the entire Senate and House of Representatives. I haven't really found anybody in those positions that I wasn't able to approach or talk to. I may not have agreed with everybody, absolutely not, but you can approach and you can have that conversation. What would you like to tell Senator, the everyday person, about something like that?
Yeah, so I have no experience in government until I decided to run for office. And, you know, I kind of looked at things, you know, especially the legislature, like, oh, you know, those are elected officials. And then I became elected, and I'm like, I'm just, you know, regular old Jessica, you know, like, I'm a nobody. I just decided to run for office because I was passionate about a few issues. And I just realized, I was like, you know, as I'm going around talking to people, one woman had said to me, she's like, you shouldn't just say you're just a senator. Like, that's a really important. Like, I say I'm just a senator because I'm just a regular person that happens to have the title of senator, but I also have other really important titles like mom and wife and daughter, and and so it may seem like, oh wow, like, oh, they're in government, but we take this role to be a service to our community, right? It's not one about elevating ourselves, it's about elevating our community, bringing their needs to the forefront.
You're a voice where there isn't one. That's the same thing. I'm not an elected official. Everybody keeps saying I should run, but I'm much better on the outside. But I'm a voice where people don't have it. I'm the voice to call out where people are afraid to or afraid to talk. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. That's just the difference. You know what I mean? But you guys are so approachable that I want people to know how comfortable they are. Representative Chippendale, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just echo everything that was said. We're just regular folks. Rhode Island has a citizen legislature, and that's exactly what we are. We're citizens who stepped up because we felt passionate about making our state better. So view us as you would your neighbor or your friends from school, the school parents or from church or whatever. We're just regular folks, and we're happy to hear from and interact with our constituents so that we understand what we should be working on.
Representative, I'm going to ask you first, so I'm not always putting the senator on the spot. So I'm going to ask you first this time. What are some of the other bills that are important to you that you have coming up right now, just so people kind of have an idea of what's going on?
So we have a few different areas where we're focusing. Education's an area that is really impacting the state across the board, and we feel strongly that if we want to correct or address all of the shortcomings in our state, the very first thing we need to address is education, because fixing education will lead to remedies in a lot of other areas automatically, just once we address that. So that's an area where we feel clearly Rhode Island is behind. We've all seen the reports, read the reports. We know where we stand, and it's not a good spot. So we're in good territory to improve. When you're down this low, it's not hard to get better. But it seems in Rhode Island like we're stuck, and I'm not sure why. So we continue to advocate for initiatives that will allow people better access to quality education and to assist them in bettering themselves through education. We also, in the Minority Caucus, are working on issues around energy right now. Energy prices have been skyrocketing, as everyone listening is aware, and timeliness is of the essence. We've just put in place some very aggressive goals for renewable energy, and in the middle of recovering from this pandemic, which the nation still is, it's a time that has become exceptionally difficult for folks to pay their bills. And the 46% increase that Rhode Island ratepayers have seen in their electricity, it's unsustainable. So we're looking to inject a little bit of common sense and some safety guardrails into our current policy around renewable energy, so that if it's not making things more affordable, we pump the brakes a little bit and wait until it becomes affordable. So those are just a couple of the areas where we're focused.
Great. And common sense isn't all that common. I'm finding that out very well.
Yeah.
Senator, what are some of the bills that you have that are important to you right now?
Well, Rep Chippendale stole all of my talking points. So no, we work together. And so those are issues that are really important to us. I mean, there are other things that we're working on, so I'll touch on those, but we care about the cost of living in Rhode Island. So even for seniors, we're looking at repealing the tax on Social Security income. We're one of the only few states that do that. Should we be doing that? I don't think so. And that's a great bill by our caucus. We're looking at legislation to make healthcare more affordable. So we have a bill in about price transparency for shoppable services. And shoppable services are things like, you're looking for a facility that does colonoscopies. That's a shoppable service. It's not, like you're going into the emergency room and say, well, how much is that, piece of gauze going to cost me? That's not what it is. It's services that you can find at other facilities. Energy obviously is one of them. We're not against clean energy. We're not against green energy. But what we are against is taking subsidies for those green initiatives and putting them on the taxpayer. And it's not the right thing to do. It's making energy more expensive. And I don't know about you, but for me, my energy bill literally has doubled. And most families are feeling the pinch because not only has their energy doubled, their groceries have doubled, and the putting gas in their car is doubled, and their homeowners insurance, everything's going up. It's just very difficult. And I just want to touch back to one of the things that Rep Chippendale mentioned, because it's really important to me as a mom of 3 kids. It's one of the reasons why I ran for office was the whole education issue, because we have school districts in which the performance and proficiency is so low that it's not even rated on the RICAS scores, right? Or they're so low that, 1/3 of Rhode Island students are at grade level in English language arts. 1/3 only? And we spend a lot of money per capita on students. Like, even nationwide, you look at it, Rhode Island is one of the highest per pupil expenditure. And what are we getting for that? I think that trapping a child in a failing school is an injustice. And I feel like, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I think it's a civil rights issue of our time. Children are being trapped in schools in which they're not getting a good education. They're not proficient in English language arts or math. And why are we trapping those kids simply because of their zip code? That's unjust. So, I kind of look at it like, and I know this is not the best example, and I'm trying to find a better example, but if I'm looking for a contractor for my home, am I only allowed to look in the perimeter, a certain perimeter around my house? Like, but what if there's a better contractor in, a different part of the state? Like, why can't I go, he has a better record, and, his customers are really happy. Like, why can't I choose him? Or, what other service is there that I am compelled to use simply because of the radius that I'm in? I don't think it's right. So I feel very strongly about it, but maybe again, I'm a mom of 3, and
I
feel
agree
like
with
right.
you. And taking what both of you said, looking at it from the disability lens, because that's, where the 90% of my day is spent. Kids with disabilities, they shouldn't be just in special education classes, because most of them have a spinal cord injury, and they could be regular mainstream classes, and that's where they should be. And that's not always the case. They just figured you use a wheelchair, that's where you need to be. Or when we're talking about energy bills, when you got the elderly and the disabled who are on SSI or SSDI, you double that. We don't even get paid a living wage on SSDI. How do they expect us to afford it? So then we have people living in loveless, abusive marriages because they have no way out, because there's no place for them to go. Or we can talk about accessible housing, which we literally have none in the state. We have 55% of Rhode Islanders using a mobility aid, and 2% of housing that I could get into in my power chair. It's not okay, and these are some of the things that this would all be overseen by the Inspector General. Hopefully this would be taken care of, and I'm hoping to work with both of you on some of the housing bills and the parking bills that I want to put up. I know you're both open to the idea, but these are some of the things, bringing it back to the community who mostly watches the show. That's what this would take care of. That's what legislation is all about. Making sure that you're bringing up what you're going through. You're not the only one going through it. By you bringing it up, like Rep Chippendale said, that he didn't know about how it affected one of the children. You don't know unless we tell you, and you can't do anything about it unless we speak up. So speak up. Speak up to somebody, meet your representatives, meet your senators, do something, say something. As I say, don't just sit there, make a difference. Make a difference and let it be heard. Senator, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and in contact with you.
Sure. You can give me a call. You can email me. I happen to be, shameless plug, I happen to be one of the senators that do legislative updates. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. It's just, I think, things that people need to know about. So sometimes, and I try not to overwhelm people. I don't want to send them, gosh, like a novel. So if you want to sign up for legislative updates, you can do that on my online. If you find me, just do a search for me. But yeah, literally everything's online. I'm going to just tell you guys, not about contact, but my son kept wanting to try and find out how old I was. And I'd be like, oh, I'm 30, I'm 29, whatever. So he literally grabs the phone, he goes, Google, how old is Senator Jessica Dela Cruz? And I was like, that's it. He's
That's
out of the
awesome.
widow. He's not getting a thing. So literally, if you search for me online, you're going to find my phone number, my email, my website, everything.
Google keeps no secrets. Rep Chippendale, I'm going to start off with you. Tell everybody the most important thing that you want to leave them with from this podcast. What is the most important thing about either the Inspector General bill or legislation in general? You have as much time as you want. Tell everybody what you think is important.
Yeah, I want to say that their voices are the most important. So right now we're talking about the Inspector General, but there's any number of other initiatives that are equally important and equally impactful on the lives of not just disabled people, but the entirety of the state. Communicate with us. You can find my information. You can find all of the legislature's information on the Rhode Island Legislature website. It'll take you directly to my office, to my email, all that, phone number, the whole 9 yards, or you can go to my website, which is repchip.com. And you'll find my personal email and personal cell phone number on there as well. You can communicate with me through that. Just don't hold back. Be bold to reach out to whoever it is that represents you on whichever level, whether it's a town council level, your legislative level in the state, or your congressional delegation, and reach out to those folks. Let them know what's on your mind. Let them know what's important to you, and start those dialogues. Because again, if we don't know, we're not going to act. We have any day has us running in 100 different directions. So if it's not brought to us, we may not notice it. So please, we love to hear from constituents. We love to hear from just Rhode Islanders, even if you're not in my district. If it's impacting you in this state, I want to know about it. So communicate with us and help us be better for you.
Yeah, both of these representatives and senators, they will talk to you about anywhere in the state. I find them very open and honest. But one thing I'm going to do to help both of you is when you approach them give them the problem, but give them a couple of solutions. Give them some ideas of what your thoughts are. Just don't complain. Think it all the way through. And that's where you're going to start making a difference. Senator Dela Cruz, this is your spot to shine. Tell everybody what you think they should know or what they should be taking out of this. That's so important.
I feel like I have to echo, and I feel like we keep doing this, but just remember that we took this position. We knew what we were getting into to represent our communities. You talked about meeting up for coffee. I hold once a month coffee hours in district. If you don't want to meet with me at the State House or give me a call and you want to see me face to face, in Burrillville, Gloucester, and North Smithfield, and I rotate through. And if you want to sit down and have a coffee with me and chat about, what's going on, sometimes people do that because, I've had as many as 40 people show up and as little as 2 people show up for a coffee hour. And but it's a great opportunity if you just want to face to face and you want to talk. Sometimes it's outside of those coffee hours. That's fine too. But do not be afraid to approach your representatives in whatever capacity they are and whatever level of government they are. Government is only as good as the people who participate in it. And if you don't participate, then, you could be making the process much better. But if you don't, then, we get what we get.
As I say, you can't complain if you're not part of the process.
Yeah. No.
You got to be part of the process. Tell everybody, is the Inspector General up for committee? Is it up for, looking for written or verbal testimony?
Chip, has yours been heard?
It's not. It's going to be heard by the House Finance Committee, which is not hearing really major bills until it's done with the budget. So I suspect that hearing will be coming up within the next few weeks.
Okay. So everybody be on the lookout for that. You can do written or in-person testimony, and the State House may not be the most accessible, but I get in and get around, so I can guide you if you want to go. But reach out, do your due diligence, and be part of the solution. Anybody who does not want to have oversight, to me, gives me not the warm and fuzzies, because I wonder why. Final last word, Senator.
Last word? All right. Gosh, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know what to say. thank you for having us on and, for giving us the opportunity to talk about the Inspector General. Sometimes when we introduce legislation, I feel like sometimes the sentiment is, okay, well, now that's going to go away and then a new topic will come up. But bringing this right back up to the surface, saying, hey, we haven't forgotten about this. This is a really important piece of legislation. So I appreciate you giving us the opportunity and the platform to talk about the Inspector General and why it's so important. So thank you for putting this on the show and talking to us.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. Rep Chippendale, your final last words?
Yes, I repeat, thank you all. Thank you for everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak with a wider audience. And again, just participate in government. Know that we're here. Know that we're only as good as you make us be. And we're happy to oblige. Reach out to us anytime. Reach out to me anytime. And let's either grab a coffee or exchange emails.
Great. You two hold on for 1 second so we can have a conversation in just a minute. But I want to thank everybody for joining in today and hearing all about how the Senate and representatives work, about the Inspector General bill. And as I always say, don't just sit there, make a difference. And just the final call, we only have a few hours left for 401 Give. So if you're looking for a great organization, donate to RAMP because we make a huge difference in this state. We'll be talking to you all soon.